For years I composed music. Then suddenly I decided to write books instead. People ask why. I can't tell, because there's nothing to say about either the music or the books. I hate talking about myself. I've got nothing to say. Always, without formulating the concept, I had based my sense of being in the world partly on an unreasoned conviction that certain areas of the Earth's surface contained more magic than others. Had anyone asked me what I meant by magic, I should probably have defined the word by calling it a secret connection between the world of nature and the consciousness of man. A hidden but direct passage which bypassed the mind. It's strange, I've lived here 59 years, and I'm still a tourist. No matter, people think of me as a tourist, and I think really I have to be considered that, although I am officially a resident. But unless one is or becomes a Muslim here, one is always an outsider. And so I'm always referred to as a Nasrani, even though I'm not officially a Christian. It's very difficult to become an intimate friend of an individual here. One can appreciate the people en masse as a group. A foreigner, or say a tourist, doesn't really know how to approach Moroccan, because their basic thought is completely different. It's different. They place importance upon different things. The whole point is to accept and continue to accept no matter what happens. Because one is really studying the people, and one is in the position of the public looking at the stage, and on the stage are the people of the other culture, the other civilization. I remember once in 1934 I was in Marrakesh, and I wanted to go to Taroudant. So I went to a garage which was near the Jematna, from which I saw many buses leaving. And I asked the man in charge, "Bonjour, est-ce qu'il y a des cars pour Taroudant?"
Taroudant, le bus là-bas, derrière.
Quand est-ce que ça part?
Demain matin, 6h30.
D'où?
À 6h30, hein?
À 6h30, je ne vais pas oublier, mais d'où?
Ici même.
Ici même.
Oui, demain matin.
Bon, merci bien.
Slama.
Slama. The next morning I got up very early and took my luggage from the hotel to the garage. Well, it was shut, there was no one around. And I waited, and it remained shut. 7, it was shut. And about 8 o'clock, the same man that I had spoken with the day before arrived. Hey! Oui, le car.
Quel car?
Le car pour Saint-Laurent.
Saint-Gaudens? Il n'y a pas de car pour Saint-Gaudens.
Hier, vous-même, vous m'avez dit qu'il y avait un car à 6h30 d'ici, non?
Ah,
Oui,
c'était pour vous faire plaisir.
pour me faire plaisir. I had to take a taxi. Well, the moral, I suppose, is not to believe anything anyone tells you, because it might be wrong, especially if you're asking for information, because generally, no Moroccan likes to say he doesn't know. Also, he doesn't want to say there's no such thing. If you're asking for a bus, he will say, well, he wants a bus, so I'll tell him there is one. That'll make him happy. If he says there isn't any, you might be angry. I suppose one needs to count on the eventual dissolution of our European civilization, which will be taken over by we don't know whom. But whoever takes over, we must be prepared for this, understand a little how the mind works. I assume that it will have something to do with the continent of Africa. And since Tangier is the front door of Africa, and of course the other side is the back door of Europe, things will happen and one will be conscious of that here. So one is well placed here in Tangier to watch whatever's going to happen. Well, I shan't see it, but others will.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
I did not choose to live in Tangier permanently. It happened. My visit was meant to be of short duration. After that, I would move on and keep moving on indefinitely. I grew lazy and put off departure. Then a day came when I realized with a shock that not only did the world have many more people than it had had only a short time before, but also that the hotels were less good, travel less comfortable, and places in general much less beautiful. After that, when I went somewhere else, I immediately longed to be back in Tangier. عندك هذا مرملادة سكنجبيس بالميز شفت يا أنا كان شوف
esas cartas, Pablo, hay algo muy interesante?
No,
Nada.
no lo creo. Tal vez hay un cheque, quién sabe.
Ah, el cheque es muy importante.
Siempre es interesante.
Ajá. Pues tienes que buscarlo enseguida. Muy pronto. Para mandarlo a más.
Thus, if I am here now, it is only because I was still here when I realized to what an extent the world had worsened and that I no longer wanted to travel. In defense of the city, I can say that so far it has been touched by fewer of the negative aspects of contemporary civilization than most cities of its size. More important than that, I relish the idea that in the night, all around me in my sleep, sorcery is burrowing its invisible tunnels in every direction, from thousands of senders to thousands of unsuspecting recipients. Spells are being cast, poison is running its course, souls are being dispossessed of parasitic pseudo-consciousnesses that lurk in the unguarded recesses of the mind. There is drumming out there most nights. It never awakens me. I hear the drums and incorporate them into my dream, like the nightly cries of the muezzins. Even if, in the dream, I am in New York, the first Allah Akbar effaces the backdrop and carries whatever comes next to North Africa, and the dream goes on. Moi, je dois dire, je n'ai pas envie de retourner aux États-Unis parce que ce n'est pas un pays qui vaut la peine de revoir. De temps en temps, je suis rentré plusieurs fois depuis que je vis ici. Pas 10 fois peut-être. Maintenant, c'est un endroit infect, invivable. Pour moi, tout le monde que je connaissais est mort. Je n'ai pas de famille, absolument personne. Parce que j'étais fils unique, et j'avais des cousins, mais eux aussi, ils étaient fils uniques. Alors personne n'a des enfants, et tout le monde est mort. Tant mieux. Comme ça, je ne suis pas obligé d'y aller. Je préfère ici, c'est beaucoup plus beau, c'est plus propre. Je ne dis pas, je suis satisfait, je suis résigné, oui. Mais il faut être résigné. Recording Moroccan music. When I say Moroccan music, I mean really the music of the country. In 1959, I got a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation. So I decided to start work, and I did. And it was going to be divided into 4 separate trips. The authorities were not in accord. Many of them refused to let me record. They didn't like the idea of Moroccan music being recorded at all, and told me, no, if you record music in that village, it's going to sound like savages, and that we can't allow you to export that and tell people that it's from Morocco, because everyone's going to say Morocco is a country of savages. I said, no, not at all. It's very good music. No, no, no. And sometimes they forbade me to record anything. I remember I talked to people and they said, I said, well, I'm going to a place called El Hajab. And they said, no, how can you? There's nothing there. I said, what do you mean? They said, there are no people. I said, of course there are. And they said, oh, but they don't count. They're simple country people. They don't know anything. You can't record there. Well, that was the idea that people had of their own country. Various people had asked me afterward, knowing that I write music, if the experience hadn't changed at all my approach to musical composition. And of course it hadn't, it couldn't. The two musics are far too different from each other. There's no possible way of combining them. So it was, for me, it was simply a pleasure to record things that I knew would not be available for long. I saved quite a lot of wonderful music from oblivion. Fortunately for the music of Morocco, the past of the country has been one in which the great majority of the people were illiterate. Therefore, they did not write out their stories or their poems and so on. They learned them by heart, often sang them or danced even to them. And that is really a great help for the music today. Another 2 or 3 decades, it would be very hard to find someone who can't read or write. And that, if they were to give their texts, I think you'd find them very different because they have reference. It all has to come directly from his memory and imagination.
يخدم في الأرض ديالو سالي كيرجع من الدار وكيورك على واحد المخدة كيشد عينو شوية شوية كينوض الهوا كيصوت مليح والرعاد البراق الشتا واحد شويش كيجي واحد الطير كحال كبير من الطاقة وكيزقي عليه وكيقول له اعتقني عتقني. الشاب كيفتح عينو وكيمشي لواحد الزلافه وكيسيب له واحد الكره كيقول له تزيد كيقول له لا نوض يلاه بحالنا. الشاب كيجلس له على رجلو ديك الطير كيطير.
In the early 1950s, I used to go every morning with Ahmed Yacoubi to a part of the beach far out where nobody ever came. Well, this was a long time ago. And now there's no part of the beach where nobody goes, but anyway. And I would have a notebook with me, and we would lie in the sun, and Yacoubi recounted stories. They were generally very funny. Well, he was particularly good after he'd had smoked kief, and the stories were funnier. As he spoke, I would translate them into English as fast as I could, and I enjoyed doing that. Jane was ill, so I couldn't work. I couldn't write my own material because I needed isolation, quiet, but she needed me every half hour. So I gave up trying to write, but I did want to work every day, so I worked on these translations. And they took all my time. And then I met Mohammed Marabat, and he began telling stories. They weren't meant to be funny, and they weren't meant to be true either. They were inventions.
حتى وصلوا لواحد الجبل جا في وسط البحر، وقف عليه قال له وهود راهو ما كيتسناوك من تحت. الشاب هود ديك الجبال وجبر واحد الشيباني واقف وجلسوا وعاد نعملوا له يا تاي شرب تاي. واحد البنت هي اللي مقابلاهم، الولد بدا كيشوف ديك البنت والبنت كتشوف فيه. جا الشيباني قال للولد عجبتك البنت؟ قال له ياه محسونه. وسول البنت قال لها بنتي عجبك الولد؟ قالت له ياه. قالو دابا قال لها مشي جيب الريقالو ديالك. مشات وجابت الريقالو ديالها، واحد الجوهر وعتاتو له عملو في عنقو وسلم عليهم وطلع بحالو وقال لهم انا ماشي نرجع قريب، وجلس على الرجلين ديال ديك الطاير والطاير طار. في الساعه ديك الولد اللي فتح عينو مخلوع وحنا على عنقو وكيجبر ديك الجوهر معلق حقيقي في عنقو. قال هادشي كخيالي، هادشي كيظهر صحيح. نهار اللي نكون راجع ماشي نعاود بالمنامه وماشي ندي في يدي الهديه ديالي.
Comes almost every day, but isn't doing any more stories at the moment now. However, he's published 10 volumes already, so he doesn't need to work anymore. Ever since I started publishing the translations of Moroccan texts, it has annoyed me because the critics don't seem to know the difference between my own texts and the translated ones. And I see a great difference between them. And that, I must say, that annoyed me very much until I began to see that I was changing my own style and making it rather more like a translation. So I think I'm pleased with that because I think it simplified my writing.
هنا كنفضيو هاد القصة، تقدر يكون حقيقية تقدر تكون خيالية.
The Moroccans claim that full participation in life demands the regular contemplation of death. I agree without reserve. Unfortunately, I am unable to conceive of my own death without setting it in the far more terrible mise-en-scène of old age.
السحور pues eso que trajo puchao no hay otra cosa, no compraste nada, ¿no?
Yo no fui, me quedé aquí.
Pues tienes Abdulwahid podía comprar cosas y lo podía dejar ahí.
Sí.
Pues ahora come las otras cosas y deja otras.
There I am without teeth, unable to move, wholly dependent upon someone whom I pay to take care of me, and who at any moment may go out of the room and never return.
Bueno, Paul, hasta mañana.
Bueno,
Yo pasaré por la mañana, inshallah.
ojalá que te vas a sentir mejor.
Que pases buena noche.
Gracias, igualmente. Goodbye, says the dying man to the mirror they hold in front of him. We won't be seeing each other anymore. When I quoted Valéry's epigram in The Sheltering Sky, it seemed a poignant bit of fantasy. Now I no longer imagine myself as an onlooker at the scene, but instead as the principal protagonist. It strikes me as repugnant. To make it right, the dying man would have to add 2 words to his farewell, and they are, thank God. For a long time I've had this particular nightmare, that of seeing my luggage go off on the train remaining on the platform. But I think how much worse it would be if my body were on the train and my luggage on the platform, the train started up, and I wouldn't be able to stay behind in Tangier, because I want to stay here. My determination is to stay where I am, that is to say, in Morocco.